Here we are. Welcome back to the Business of Human Flourishing podcast. And today is another episode of Partner Corner. And we're going to dig into all things going on in our world. And on our first episode of Partner Corner, we discussed kind of the foundation of our partnership, our shared values, and the idea that we work hard, we are smart, and we have those shared values. And today we're going to dive into how that kind of shows up practically in real time with the way we operate companies, and discuss our new opportunity trying to do things at a larger scale. So, Jake, thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me. Happy to be back.
Yeah, big fan.
Big fan of the pod. First time, long time.
Not first time, second time, long time. All right. So today we're going to talk about the gas and brakes nature of our relationship. And you want to dive in there?
That's exactly where I want to dive in. Let me hit the brakes on this first. So one of the things that Tripp and I have identified in our partnership is that, and we use this as kind of a joke to the outside world, but Tripp's the unconstrained gas pedal and I'm the brake pedal in our partnership. And he's kind of the one pushing us forward, and I sit in more of a risk management seat where I am pumping the brakes and fact-checking things and figuring out, if we should use our time in the way that you want to. For me as an individual, this is not my natural state. And I think this is one of the unique things about our partnership is that in other arenas of my life, I've always been the crazy one who, went out and tried to get things that we couldn't do and said when I ran the construction business, every person who asked us, could we do X? I just said yes, and I figured it out. So we never, slowed down to figure out what we could or couldn't do. We just saw opportunities and we chased them. I've always been the gas pedal guy, but I think for you and I, you're much better at being a visionary leader and being the idea guy. And it's been helpful for me to kind of pivot back to being more of the brake pedal risk manager. And I think why that feels a little natural for me is just having an investment background. So in investing, everybody thinks about chasing rewards, but really investing is about risk management. And it's everything passes through the risk management lens first, and then you're figuring out how to get a reward in spite of the risks. So, Warren Buffett is obviously a famous investor, and he always talks about the number one rule in investing is don't lose money. Like a permanent loss of capital is the only thing that is going to set you behind. So that's really what it's all about. And that's kind of how I act in our partnership is I got to be the one that says hey, we got to slow down. This might derail us.
Yeah. And we went through an exercise. I read the book called Traction, and we went through implementing the Entrepreneurial operating system. And that was really useful for us. And maybe you could talk a little bit about what it was like before we had identified kind of roles like visionary, integrator, and discuss kind of organizational whiplash a little.
Mm-hmm. Happy to. So every Monday we would have this leadership meeting, and every Monday Tripp would come in with what seemed like a different agenda, and people would be trying to grab me after the meeting and be like, what are we working on now? What's the new idea? So we sort of had transitioned to this flavor of the week strategy where Tripp would go read another book over the weekend, and he would come in on Monday all excited about the next big breakthrough we were going to have as an organization. It was crazy.
And then we fixed it, though.
Yeah, we did. And I think as you mentioned, we started reading Traction and implementing this entrepreneurial operating system. And one of the things that it talks about is how not every organization has a visionary leader, but the ones that do, oftentimes a visionary leader can create what's called organizational fatigue or organizational whiplash, like you said, where this energy of picking different priorities and a visionary leader changing what we're doing on a daily or hourly or weekly basis can just create a lot of fatigue for people in the organization who are at lower levels. So they're more focused on, they just want to do their job well, and where you see opportunity, they see, moving goalposts and changing priorities, and it just creates a lot of fatigue where people who don't have control over the strategy begin to question that it changes. So I think we were able to identify it through, entrepreneurial operating system, and we were then able to figure out how to address it. And what it looks like now in a more practical sense is Nick, who's our executive director at Greenhill.
Phenomenal operator.
Yeah, great operator. So Nick and I essentially act as the body armor or the buffer for the rest of the organization. So everything that Tripp wants to do has to come through us. And we actually removed Tripp from the leadership meeting for this very reason. Is like Tripp, Nick, and I have our own meeting where we kind of talk about what's coming in the future and bigger priorities. And then Nick and I get to choose what, cascades down to the rest of the organization. So that way the organization gets to operate on a slower timeline, and we can sort of slowly introduce the initiatives that we all agree are valuable, to the rest of the organization.
Yeah, and I'm just, I think curiosity and appetite for change are kind of categories that I score very highly in, but, stick-with-itness is probably not. And that can cause a lot of problems. And I think we've seen a lot less chaos that once I was kind of removed from that equation. And it doesn't mean that I don't have any influence or ability to, have, the visibility into operations, but optimizing operations is not my strong suit. Is that fair?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we developed this cool heuristic that we always write on the whiteboard, that Tripp does the first 10% of anything, Jake does the next 40%, and then an operator, or Nick in this case, does the next 50%. So it's sort of like idea is your world, I'm the build it guy, and then Nick is the run it guy. And that sort of checks out with what I had said earlier, is I'm also not a natural operator. I too have a little bit of the visionary bone in my body, and I like to be more in that construction phase, and then once everything is running, I too get bored. But yeah, Tripp did some psychological testing and has identified he has big executive functioning issues and organization issues, and he's
great verbal and spatial though. Great verbal and spatial.
He can pick the correct Tupperware 10 out of 10 times.
Yeah, that's my superpower. I thought we were going to save that. I wanted to dedicate an entire episode to the fact that I am a master at picking the right Tupperware for leftovers.
It is an amazing skill. Yeah. But yeah, so we kind of live in this framework where Tripp is the idea guy and he does that first 10%, and then I figure out how to run something, and then once it has a little stability, then an operator sticks in. And that just leans into all of our skill sets, where Tripp's a guy that he doesn't want to come in to work every day and do the same exact thing. And that's a very unique ability, and the fact that we have something like that, in our organization and in our partnership is what really has generated most of our success. So I think And I think one of the things that you're exceptional at is just your self-awareness. Most, organizational leaders, they don't want to seize control or cede control, and they don't want to. They want to be the guy that lives in the micromanagement and the details. Where I think you have correctly identified that you don't do that well and you don't find value in it. So you have this unique ability to actually step out of things when necessary. Where I think that's what other visionary leaders can't do well. Where I worked in, my first job in finance, I worked for a visionary leader, and the guy had crazy ideas, and he moved the organization forward, but we felt this organizational whiplash all the time, and he couldn't let go of things. He micromanaged everything, and I saw this company kind of rot from the inside culturally, where nobody trusted what he said or what we were going to do next, and everybody, got very fatigued with the changing priorities. And then he would just lean in and micromanage more, where I think that's your other superpower, is that you're able to actually pull back and you trust Nick and I. When we say, hey, we don't need you anymore, this thing's passed off, then you can let go of it, which I think is very important. And
because I know we're going to spend part of this episode talking about the first time we were trying to raise money as partners. You've raised money for a mango farm in Cambodia before. So you have some experience, at least in raising money. I've never done that other than kind of a friends and family raise to get Greenhill going. But maybe we could take a minute and talk about why, not just why we're raising money, but the idea that we need to grow, and what you have encouraged me to do to, in stepping away from Greenhill, the way I always think about it is we can solve a certain number of problems, and it's just what problems are we going to choose to solve. I could sit in Green Hill and optimize some particular offering of a line of service, but you've correctly said that's not where your unique contribution is. So what's your kind of rationale behind getting me out of the weeds?
Well, as I describe you, I call you a great white shark in a pond, right? So Tripp's this guy who's a big predator, carnivore, and Green Hill is a small organization. And I think what we did is we took a step back and, what was best for Green Hill was not what you wanted to do. And I think what you wanted to do, and myself too, is we want to change the entire healthcare landscape. And we want to make, policy changes and research and modality changes. And Green Hill's just not the platform to do that. So it's a small business, and we reached this point where we talked about we're in the process of passing Green Hill off to Nick, and it's really what Green Hill needs right now is not to grow. It needs to just mature as an organization, and it needs to let its people become more confident, and it really needs zero of this organizational whiplash. And when we took a step back, it's not the foundation to launch a massive, industry-changing company. It's more of a niche brand.
And we like it. We believe in what we do, but that amount of energy, I was just putting chaos into a system.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Green Hill is a very high-quality brand, and we do phenomenal work, and it's just not something that's infinitely scalable. So I think what's best for Green Hill is to keep it at more of a boutique level, and we're really good at young adult treatment, and we just couldn't expand to other geographies or other demographics on that platform. So where that has led us is we know that we want to do something much bigger, and we've taken a step back and figured out how we can take all of the lessons we've learned at Green Hill and use that as a proof of concept and draw the things out of that we want and create a better idea.
Yeah.
And something that is scalable. So that's essentially, why we're here today, right? You've pulled out of Green Hill and you've, charted on this course with Advaita where we want to be a much larger organization. And our first scalable idea on the Advaita platform is Educare, and it's a deal that we're going out and trying to raise money for right now.
And before we kind of jump into the fundraising component of our work right now, I'd like to just give the example of what happened this week as far as gas breaks and our kind of personal relationship. So, kind of currently, as of Q3 for us, we have a couple of priorities. One, it is optimizing our outpatient line of service. It's currently, we lose money. We lost money for the past year and a half on one of our lines of service. And there are a whole host of reasons for why that is. And we want to address that. So that's one kind of priority for us. The second one is launching this medical practice. The third is upgrading our technology and data collection. So we're rolling out some new systems at Green Hill. And then the last two have to do with kind of our parent company, Advaita Health Ventures, and establishing our board of advisors for that, and then raising money for the first opportunity. So we got a lot to do this quarter. And what happened yesterday?
In typical Tripp fashion, I received a text that says, "Yo, you're going to be mad at me," which is how most of his ideas come now. And then I usually just respond, "No," or "Stop," or "What is it?" And then, because we can just cut through the BS here now. I know that you're going to try and pitch me on. We sort of use this idea of Tripp is a vegan, as everyone in the world knows.
Well, you said carnivore earlier, so thank you for clarifying.
Absolutely not a carnivore. But so vegan food truck has kind of become the joking placeholder we have for one of Tripp's new ideas. Is when I get one of these texts out of the blue, he's going to try and pitch me on starting a vegan food truck in the parking lot outside. So yesterday we had a vegan food truck moment, and as Tripp mentioned, right, we spent a lot of time putting together these OKRs and these priorities and things that we need to do well to finish out the year. And we nailed them down at Green Hill, and we've passed a lot of that off to Nick. And then you and I were hard charging and raising money for our next, idea, which I had thought we had settled on. So yesterday
we did settle, but nothing's ever settled.
Nothing's ever settled. And as Tripp always, the ultimate get out of jail free card he has is that we both firmly agree on the idea that you have to update your mental models and your worldview as new information comes in. So every day is a chance for new information. Tripp is an information seeker. So every day we can update whatever we're doing based on new information. And I just have to agree to that.
Philosophically, that's a good idea.
So yeah, Tripp's latest and greatest idea was, so he tried to pitch me on, he called me immediately and was like, I have an idea. It's concierge medical care. And really it's about, as we, head down this path of human flourishing and betterment, it's really about, primary care is not set up in a way, it's very reactive. Like people go to the doctor when something is wrong with them. They're not thinking, they don't view healthcare as a platform to get better. So really the idea you were heading is more of a primary practice concierge model where it's about wellness and betterment and using data to be ahead of the curve and help use healthcare to optimize performance and all that stuff.
Yeah. So I got really interested mainly because of a couple podcasts I listened to this weekend and then a couple conversations I had. I got interested in this idea of, because I wanted it. I was like, hey, look, I'm thinking about, we're about to start trying to have kids. Like, I want to be as healthy as I can. I had this like panic moment that even though I'm, this vegan yoga guy, like I was like, oh man, maybe my health isn't good enough. How do I go get this like really kind of boutique performance optimization and longevity focused primary care? So I thought it was a great idea. I also talked to one of my friends who, former congressman, and he's consulting with a concierge primary care company, and kind of the confluence of those things coming through my headspace led me to say, maybe we should do concierge primary care. And I still think we should, but the point being that, one of my kind of responsibilities as a leader and CEO, and as we've made it vision, this kind of title Visionaries, I just do need to go out there. I need to kick up a bunch of dirt and see what sticks. But this idea did not land yesterday with Jake.
It didn't land at all.
So, but what I think is really illustrating for us, and I have to really applaud you for the way you handled me yesterday, was you had pretty much shot me down, said, hey, like, let's not talk about this. We've got enough going on. I pushed a little further. I had a couple more conversations with people who mixed reviews. And then, you started sending me, you texted me links to other people who were, in your mind already doing
air
this.
Quotes.
Like, this is already being done. Why do you think we should do this? And I replied with probably a couple snarky replies. And then I said, hey, if you do want to understand what's differentiating this, check out this podcast. Go read David Sinclair's work. Anyone who's interested in performance and longevity should definitely check out David Sinclair. You can find his website at drsinclair.com. And he's really one of the foremost experts in this kind of health optimization. And then you responded with, thanks for sending that. And you immediately diffused a situation where I knew I was probably kind of off on one of my tangents, but those tangents sometimes lead to a good place. And so you don't want to, to stifle that kind of creativity and curiosity, but we also just need to be aligned. And I think one of the things we focused on in our partnership is just coming back and making sure we get alignment on a regular basis.
Yeah, absolutely. And the magic thing that I'm always chasing with you is just the opportunity cost of time. It's like, like we had, in the morning, we had pitched a venture firm on our next idea. And then by the afternoon, we're working on the next idea. So it always comes down to me for an opportunity cost thing, where I just don't want us to pour our time and, eventually we have to pick one. And I think this is the great challenge of every entrepreneur is, once you become an entrepreneur, what did you do? You saw an opportunity and you chased it. And when it goes well, it builds confidence in your ability to go chase more opportunities. So when you're in a position like Tripp is right now, where you're very, curious, external facing, looking for the next idea, you get in this place where it's hard to turn down opportunities. And I think that's what you and I struggle with is like, while this may be a great idea, it's really about where it stacks up in relation to the other ideas. And does it achieve our objectives of scale, and policy changing and all these different things. So it's like we just have to throw it in the mix and level it against other ideas. And I think that's kind of what I do. But I think what you brought up too is that, you have trained me to live in this place of curiosity. And like everybody's familiar with Occam's razor, but there's another one, Hanlon's razor, which is that which can be asserted without evidence can be dismissed without evidence. So it's basically like Tripp has trained me to, like, I have to, if I'm going to shoot down these ideas, I have to do my research, and it has to be more than just a reaction, right? I have to respond to it in a way where I have to maintain that curiosity, and I should go out and look for competitors. And if I'm shooting down an idea, like, I have to have a good reason why. And I think that's what you and I do well, is like we can live in that curiosity space. And I want to be able to paint, we're both very competitive and we like being right, and we're both smart guys. And if, like, when we have these moments of conflict, we both do our homework. And I think what it does for us is we reach a final conclusion with a ton of information, and we're able to push back on each other in these micro ways in the moment, and we don't really dig in, and we get to the place where the idea has, been fully fleshed out. Yeah. And why I said thanks for sending me that is because, like, you do your homework, and it's like these ideas don't come from nowhere. And I think that you have met me halfway by developing them on your end and finding the research that backs it and justifying your position. It's very cool how we ideate back and forth.
So that was our kind of partnership moment of the week, I think, as far as it went really. I mean, we've had much more passive aggressive interactions than what happened. So I just view this as us maturing too. Like, it was pretty cool to me to kind of take a metacognitive approach to that entire interaction and just witness how quickly it could be, diffused. And that was awesome. So you mentioned we pitched a venture fund. So one thing, even though you said I can let go of the reins, like, I have no effing desire to give up equity in anything. And yet here we are trying to raise money, which, I mean, we could theoretically be doing debt financing, convertible notes, but that's unlikely to be what we need. So we're going to shop around and give up equity. Why are we doing this? What are we looking for in a deal? Because we need to come up with this deal criteria, this week too. Mm-hmm. So what's going on with the fundraising side? Why are we doing this? Why not just stay slow and steady and just kind of organically grow?
So I think what we've identified is that if we do stay slow and steady and organically grow, we are not going to have the capital, at one time to launch something that is scalable. And I think we've arrived at a place where really it's just a timeline thing. Like, you and I want to do X right now. We're not really needed at Greenhill. And if we used Greenhill as the bank account, like, you and I would be twiddling our thumbs for 3 years before we had enough money in the bank to launch a big company. So we've reached a place where we can either wait, or if we want to shorten the timeline and really have the ability and freedom to blow our next thing out of the water, we need to go out and test the market for investor dollars. And I think one of the other things that you and I have identified is we're people that like mentors and we like guidance, and really what we're looking for is not money, but we're looking for a strategic partner that we can grow with over the next few decades. Because you hear all these success stories of venture firms where, they don't invest in idea, they invest in people. And what happens is, one venture fund will invest in 4 ideas from the same entrepreneur, where they will, participate in an initial investment, they will participate in an exit, and they will roll. They just keep, running it back, if you will. So really, that's what we're out there doing is we want to find a source of capital. Like, if we're going to change the healthcare landscape, it's not going to be done in a small business. And I always talk about, Green Hill's closer to a lemonade stand than a Fortune 500 company. And that's just the truth. Like we've built a big company, but the scale at which, Oak Street Health or these big public healthcare companies operate is so far away from what Green Hill is. So we just need to go raise a bunch of money to set ourselves up on a new trajectory where it's just starting from a much larger foundation.
So how does this not make us the bad business guys in healthcare? Like we're just trying to blow something out of the water. I mean, I can answer that, and I will. But
well, I always take the stance that if we're not going to do it, somebody else is. And what we know is that we are good guys, and Tripp and I always, we might have said it on the partnership podcast last time, but we're people that are more likely to screw ourselves than screw each other over. And we just have that identity as businessmen. Like we care about people, and we care about long-term changes, and we're in this for the right reasons, if you will. And I think when you're there, you can look around a field and you can see who is in it for the right reasons and who is in it for the wrong reasons. So a lot of our referral partners and marketing strategy in Green Hill has been about going and finding the people who are doing this for the right reasons. And then, we have to team up. I don't know if you're a Star Wars guy, but I always kind of view us as
do you think I'm a Star Wars guy?
No.
Okay.
So we're sort of the rebel alliance, right? Like the bad capitalist guys and these big companies are out there, and they're the Darth Vaders, and they're the evil empire, and they're the ones with infinite resources to destroy the world. And kind of our view is that they are going to destroy the world. And unless people like us, rise up and build these coalitions of other entrepreneurs who care about the world and build something big, like we have to build something big to compete with the bad guys. And I think that's just the tension we have to live in, is that if we don't operate at scale, then the bad guys win.
Yeah. And I think to, kind of riff on that one, it's, if we could do this organically and kind of do small proof of concept, that would be great. But unfortunately, when we're talking about making systemic changes in the healthcare landscape, you just actually have to operate at scale to have a seat at the table. I mean, we don't have any ability to advocate for policy change, or even, use the small amount of data that we're collecting is not really enough in order to make those systemic changes we're interested in. And so we view this, raising money, having a larger organization is not just about growing for the sake of growing, but we're not going to be able to tap into all of the information and tools that we think are going to drive healthcare forward if we don't do it at a larger scale. And it's just, that's just the reality of it. And we could continue to do really good work, have a great impact on the lives of the people that we serve, but that's not necessarily going to move the system forward. And that's what I want, my legacy, to be about, really making a positive change. And I think we like the healthcare space in general. It's fun. You get to show up to work and you are dedicating, what you do to bettering other people's lives. So I just think for us, for me, it's really difficult to think about raising money though. And I want to be in charge.
You're still going to be in charge.
Yeah. And I think, what we're trying to figure out, like we said, like Jake said, it's not just about the money, but it's about the strategic partner. It's about us finding, I think one thing that we've done pretty well is we've built a network of advisors and mentors that are kind of super powerful, important, mature in their careers, et cetera. And we've done a good job getting something off the ground, but that kind of middle ground, we're kind of, early 30s, but we're entering that, up ramp in our own careers. And we want people who are a few years ahead of us that can help kind of shepherd us along the way, so that we can have the impact we want.
Yeah, and I'll just dig into the raising money thing a little bit. So sort of our strategy in raising money is it's more of a dating approach. And I think, we're trained when we interview for jobs that, it's somebody who's asking us a bunch of questions and we're supposed to only have the answers. And really, I've been told throughout my career, when you go into any job interview, it's just as much about you interviewing and getting to know that company as it is them getting to know you.
Yeah.
And I think people bring so much fear and a scarcity mindset into an interview where they just want that job. So they're not willing to drift back to this place of curiosity in their head where they can entertain that maybe that job is not a good fit for them, based on how the company, operates or functions. So that's essentially what we're doing with the fundraising strategy is like, we want to find a long-term partner and we're willing to date around till we get it. And I think we ask the hard questions and we approach these pitches where we're not just trying to sell someone on an idea, we're trying to sell somebody on partnership.
Yeah.
And a quick little story. So when I did the mango farm, we essentially had, two investment theses for that project. The first one was that land was undervalued in Cambodia, it would appreciate. So it was sort of a real asset land play. And then the other one was commercial farming doesn't exist in Cambodia, and we able to optimize, and generate much higher profits by creating more of a system around mango farming. And what we found is that, those two ideas have very different timelines. Like the land strategy is much more of a set it and forget it. And the operational strategy is much more of your quarterly results. Let's review financials. So, I had to learn this lesson the hard way, but, when we attracted our investor base for that, what I came to learn after we had launched was that really I had these two competing investor camps where I had, one camp was in the set it and forget it. Let's not worry about it. This is a long-term game. And then we had another investor camp where they were dug in on the, what are you doing today? What's changing today? When are you going to buy that equipment? And so we were living in this tension where we were getting micromanaged by half of our investors. And then the other investors were like, slow down, chill out. Like, why are you... So it's like I didn't know who to try to please. And it's like, and from our seat, it's like, we're doing both at the same time. But so that's the type of situation that we're trying to avoid in this round. It's like, we want to find a partner, that's grounded in our values and they're long-term thinkers and they can see the long game. And we just want to take the time to find that right partner.
And one of the things I think this is actually interesting. This is an example of you maybe being more of the gas in this situation, is you've really pushed us for this fundraising because I think I just get distracted by new concepts, new ideas, trying to add and refine our existing concept, and we talk about Educare. That's really the big one. And what's difficult for me though, is that you can always get better. And then, so we can always get better. Every day, like Jake mentioned, we're adding new information, which allows us to refine a pitch, refine the model, really understand things better. And that's endless. You can do that forever. And so, and I typically do. I spend a lot of time doing that. And at the same time, though, I get very frustrated when I see people who've raised a bunch of money for projects that are dumb as shit. I mean, there are so many stupid ideas out there in healthcare. I mean, everyone has mixed up a few buzzwords and they have digital interventions, digital therapeutics, social help, this, that, and you just, it's a word, word scramble of things that really I don't think are going to make systemic change. And so we've spent really the last 2-3 years refining a concept for collegiate focused healthcare that we think has a lot of legs, and just for systemic change, really looking at being in the middle between patients, providers, payers, and policymakers. But that in and of itself is huge. Like when we do this, we will have done something very special, but we got to get out there and start doing it. And I think one of the things you have correctly pushed us on is we're never going to have a perfect pitch. This is never going to be a perfect idea, and it's always going to be an idea until you get out there and do it. And so one of the aspects that we're kind of leaning into with this fundraising process is like, let's just go out there. I think our goal is 50 pitches in the next 3 months, or now 2.5 months. We just did our first one, and we've got another one coming up this week. And a lot of this is just about information gathering and refining what we're doing, finding out if anyone else is out there doing something similar, looking for additional partners in this, et cetera. So I'll let you jump in. But so I'm just thinking, this is information gathering and an opportunity, for you to be the guy saying, like, shut up and let's do this. Because I do think even though we talked about the chaos and the different ideas that I have, I can really, really overkill an idea. I want it perfect.
Absolutely.
And that's an interesting tension, though, kind of the opposite of what we talked about earlier, but also one of the reasons, you wanted me out of day-to-day operations at Green Hill is because I want every aspect perfect. And which one to improve first, that's where it's chaos. I'll come up with 50 things you got to do that day. So,
yeah, so essentially what I told you is that we have to go out and test the market, right? Like any idea... Yesterday was a great example of that, right? Like you had a good idea, you tested it on the market, air quotes, with me, and I pushed back and said I wouldn't do this, I would do this, I like this, I don't like this about it. And then we started to reshape the idea immediately. So anybody goes to, pitch their first idea and largely they think it's a perfect idea. Like anybody who goes into the room of a venture capitalist, like they are coming to that room prepared and they want to show up with their best stuff. So, we can make the assumption that they think their idea is perfect.
Yeah.
And then basically what happens is you, in a very simple sense, you either get money or you don't, right? So like the market is going to tell us what the market wants. So we're going to come to market with an idea that we think is great, but my big energy is that pitching is the new information, and we'll see if things work or they don't work, and we will sort of bend this idea to where the market needs it to be, and that's just how people successfully raise money is they give the market what it wants. They give that venture capital firm the idea that they have been waiting for, and 9 times out of 10. People do not get money on their first pitch, and they go back and they iterate and they make changes and they take feedback from some arenas and they put it into their project. But also, you have to know when maybe the market is giving you bad information. So that's another component of it. So like you might go to a VC and they might tell you that's never going to work. And we had that, before where we talked to a potential advisor months ago, and he said this has got to be 100% tech or it's not, and we could have taken that as gospel, but we retreated back and figured he was wrong, right? Like this does have to have a brick and mortar element to it. So I think the best way to pitch and go get money is just to try to align our values and our idea with the market, and then the market will give us the money that we need. So yeah, I think for me, pitching is very much a fail-forward approach, and I've just seen you hear these stories of people that went to 10 different VCs, and then the 11th one said yes, and hey, now they're Airbnb. Even these mega unicorns,
right.
They didn't walk into Sequoia Capital in their first pitch meeting, and they said, oh yeah, sure, they'll give you $10 million, and you're off to the races. And the other thing too is that there is no standard deal in venture capital, right? Like you talked about how you didn't want to give up control and we're selling equity in a company, but there is no template for that. There isn't hey, in your first round, you're giving up 10% and the valuation is always this. So the other nice part is that, in testing the market, it's a qualitative thing, but it's also a quantitative thing where we could go to our first person and they tell us your idea is worth $5 million and we want 20% of it. And then the next person might say, your idea is worth $10 million and we want 10% of it. And here's why, or we want this type of control or this type of monitoring. So it's really getting out there and pitching is the only way to find the deal you want and the partner you want.
And I think one of the things I struggle with in this process is not that I don't think any of our ideas are, quote, perfect. And I think this goes back to, trying to find a strategic partner to grow with. But I do think if someone, and I think what we're trying to do is, even with stuff like this podcast, is show our thought process. Because I think if we become better decision makers, better information gatherers, better synthesizers, better communicators, then things get better. Everything gets better. One of the things that frustrates me is just this intellectual rigor. I mean, you do, one of the funny things about this is, venture has a certain kind of risk appetite and needs there to be a potential 100x return. And then if we're talking to family offices or more kind of traditional private equity, they may view this as a much more kind of brick and mortar standard, run a profitable company type play. And I think we have the appetite to do both, and we don't see any reason to say no to certain opportunities. I mean, you make me say no to a lot, but in a good way. But I think like that's been one of the tough things, and one of the things we're, again, getting to test out, like how big of an idea do you want? Like, you want to go big, we'll go big. Dude, space-based interventions for all I care. I don't know. But yeah, so now we're about to fly out to Phoenix, meet with someone we think would be a phenomenal partner. I think my biggest apprehension about this is I think we are likely to end up with a deal that, if we get that far, that makes us a portfolio company, whereas we want to be treated more as a venture investment and be running on our own platform. So we'll see how that goes.
The only way is to go out there and check it out.
It's going to be fun. I'm not going to spend any more time trying to build out this concierge primary care for executives interested in performance and longevity. But hey, if you are interested in that, please let me know, because that's really valuable data that I can go back to this guy with. All right. We're going to go work now.
Yeah, let's go work.
All right. Well, thank you for tuning in to this episode of Business of Human Flourishing. It was episode 2 of the Partnership Corner. So thanks a lot, and we'll see you next time.